Cedric Coward is a dog.
We interrupt this program to bring you
Cedric,
the Cowardly Dog Show.
Said it, I'm golden. Told you I'm shining. Had to break through. Plan perfect timing. Giving no hands. Go get it. Radix the ruler.
The Miami Heat picked 20th overall in the upcoming 2025 NBA draft. And so far in our draft series, I've discussed Liam McNeely, Rasheer Fleming, Noah Asenge, Will Riley, Nee Clifford, Walter Clayton Jr., and now Cedric Coward, because tons of comments have asked that I talk about him. So shout out to all these people you see here, and make sure to drop your comments down below on who you want me to talk about next. But the comments weren't the only people to be interested in Cedric Coward, because the reason that we're actually starting with his pro day highlights behind me is because there was one very special person there in the audience who seemed very interested in Cedric Coward too, and that was the great Godfather Pat Riley. And it's no secret that the Miami Heat are interested, because for Cedric Coward, I saw player comps like Kawhi Leonard. Now, I think that's partly because of his remarkable measurables. At the NBA Combine, he officially came in at 6'5", 213 pounds, but with a 7'2" wingspan. I repeat, 6'5", with a 7'2" wingspan. That's a plus of 9 inches. You know how big 9 inches is? Not that that's necessary. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with just 3, but still, having that kind of length means that his defensive potential is through the roof. Now, I did see some disparities as far as his position. Basketball Reference had him listed as a forward, but the NBA Combine website had him listed as a guard. That's probably why I saw a wide range of other player comps outside of Kawhi Leonard. There was a couple of really great 3-and-D wings like Dorian Finney-Smith and Jeremy Grant. I think that type of mold could fit very well on the Heat right now. But then I saw a couple of Heat legends. The first one was Josh Richardson, who I kind of get it, right? In Josh Richardson's prime, which was really his rookie season. That's kind of sad if you think about it. But as a rookie, Josh Richardson was an excellent shooter, and he was a very good perimeter defender. I think that's something that Cedric Coward could provide too. But then the next comparison I saw was James Jones. Obviously, James Jones was a phenomenal shooter in his time with the Miami Hurricanes and the Miami Heat. But I don't really think he has the kind of defensive upside that Cedric has, unless that's something that young James Jones was doing. Maybe I was too young to remember that. But there was also a wide range in terms of where I saw him mocked across these different NBA mock drafts. NBADraft.net had him outside the lottery at number 35. But then Bleacher Report had him at 14, The Ringer at 15, Yahoo at 17. But then Tankathon also had him in the second round at number 36. So some publications thought he was a second round prospect. Some thought he was a late lottery. I think the reason for this is because Cedric Coward only played 6 games as a junior at Washington State due to a torn labrum in his shoulder, but he only missed like 4 to 6 months, and obviously he's back now based off his combine and pro day that you're seeing now. He actually had such a great combine that he was one of the highest risers from that. So maybe some of these publications either didn't update their mock draft since the combine, or they just don't put a lot of stock into it, and they have a lot of questions because of his limited playing time at Washington State. He did play 2 full seasons prior, though, at Eastern Washington, where he showed real great consistency and efficiency really all throughout his college career. I want to look at his senior stats, though, from his 6 games at Washington State. He averaged 18 points per game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, but look at the efficiency, 56% from the field and 40% from 3, and that's on 5 attempts. Also shot 84% from the free throw line. So this is Kawhi Leonard-esque efficiency. When I think about efficient jump shooters in the NBA, like I'm looking at Kawhi Leonard and Kevin Durant. Not many guys that take this many jump shots have that level of efficiency, like well over 50%, and Cedric Coward is one of those guys. So I really think he has a chance to be one of the best players to recently come out of Washington State. Of course, they had Klay Thompson, and the second best guy is probably Jalen Wells. So they don't really have a super rich basketball history, but there's been a lot of great role players to come out of that college throughout the years. But now I want to look at his strengths and weaknesses. These are the ones that Kevin O'Connor had listed in his Yahoo article, but I'll also be sharing my own opinion based off my individual research, because the first strength that Kevin O'Connor had listed was athleticism, but then he really didn't go on to mention anything athletic-wise, mostly just talked about his frame, because when I was watching highlights of Cedric, he looked like a mostly below-the-rim finisher, but when I checked out his official combine measurements, he had a max vertical leap of 38.5, which was tied for 9th overall in the entire draft combine. He was tied with VJ Edgecombe, who we know is a high flyer. So it's possible that Cedric Howard is very athletic. He just didn't have enough film of it his junior season at Washington State. But then, as Kevin O'Connor notes, Cedric Howard has a great frame, although he still needs to fill into it a little bit. He's only 215 pounds. But Kawhi Leonard is only 225, and he's 2 inches taller, so 10 pounds more heavy, 2 inches taller. That tells me that they have a relatively similar frame, although, of course, as Cedric Howard gets older, he'll continue to add on more weight and muscle to just make him that much more of a scary player, because already right now, he uses his size to fight through screens, absorb contact on drives, crash the boards, and he'll only continue to get better at those things as he matures a little bit. The next strength they have listed is his shooting, mostly coming off of spot ups, but he has shown the ability to hit off the movements as well. One of the things that really stood out to me is his great mid-range jumper. I think that also means that there's a potential for a great pull-up game, especially when defenders are running Cedric Howard off the three-point line, since he's so efficient from out there. But the way he operates in the mid-range, I know a lot of it is out of the post, and as a rookie, he won't get a lot of those touches. We've seen that same problem with Jaime Jaquez, but his post fade is so beautiful. And even his ability to get into the paint, if a double team comes, he has the IQ to spin the opposite direction and go for that mid-range fade. That's just a shot that all of the greats have. Kawhi Leonard, of course, but Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, they all have this just great touch in the mid-range, which I feel like a lot of the young stars nowadays don't have, because the mid-range is sort of a lost art. But I do see a little bit of that in Cedric Howard. Not to compare him to all those legends that I just did, but the point is, I could tell that he has a great touch in that range, which is just, like I said, a lot of the young players don't have. The next strength they have listed is his interior scoring. We just mentioned how he likes to operate in the post, but it's not always with fadeaways. He does like to rise up and finish through contact. The same can be said when he drives to the rim. If a defender is running out to him at the three-point line and closing out very hard, he doesn't have to settle for that midi pull-up that we also just discussed. If there's not a big man in the paint, best believe Cedric Howard's going to put his head down, use his strength and frame to get to the rim, and he does a great job finishing inside. And the next strength they have listed is his basketball IQ, and I'm going to read straight for Kevin O'Connor on this one because I love what he said. He said that Cedric Howard knows his role, relocates off ball, looks for cutting chances, and does all the little things to satisfy a head coach. This is the type of player that I think the Miami Heat need more of. They need more high basketball IQ players. And I know I compared Cedric to superstars, and we've talked about Kawhi Leonard a bunch. Maybe he does have that kind of potential, but I think his floor is a very great rotation player in this league / very good starter. I think that's his floor, meaning that he'll likely be playing next to superstars in his career, meaning he won't have the ball as much as he did in college. So he will have to know how to do all these little things like cutting to the rim, finding open space. That's how he's going to be able to get his points. The next strength they have is his defense. Says super versatile defender with lateral quickness to stay in front of guards, plus the length and toughness to handle some bigger wings. I mean, if you're telling me he's 6'5", with that kind of lateral quickness, obviously he can guard 1 through 3. Throw in that 7'2" wingspan, I'm sure he can guard a lot of fours out there. Unless there's a lot of these double big lineups that we're starting to see in today's game, then I don't want him playing the 4. It's kind of the same concern I had with Nick Clifford, is because Nick Clifford was 6'6", kind of had a bigger frame. I'm worried that Spoelstra is going to try to play him at power forward if the Heat were to draft him or draft Cedric Howard. Just because the guy has a big wingspan doesn't mean he's a power forward, Spoelstra. I don't want to get on that tangent too much because, like I said, we did it in the Nick Clifford video. But you look at a guy like Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith. Like, Haywood Highsmith is 6'5". Yes, he has a 7-foot wingspan. He really does. That's why they play him at power forward. But he's not a great power forward. He's just too small, especially in today's game where we're starting to see a lot of the double big lineups that we are. But outside of all that, he does have the length to also affect in passing lanes, alter shots on closeouts, and it says that Cedric Howard has a very energetic approach on the defensive end. Sounds like a Heat culture guy to me. Sounds like the type of guy that this team needs more of. Then the last strength they have listed is his passing. It says he's a nice connective piece so the ball doesn't stick. He's able to drive and kick out or throw entry passes to bigs. Maybe if he sees Khalil Ware with the mismatch, he's a guy that can get him the ball. He's not going to be a primary creator or nothing like that, but what you want from a guy who will be a great rotation player / great starter, you don't want the ball to get stagnant when he touches his hands. You don't want the ball to stick. You want him to have the IQ and vision to find your other players like Bam Adebayo or Tyler Hero, or in the Heat's case, Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo next year. Although I don't see how the Heat could get those guys without giving up this pick. But now let's move on to his weaknesses, where the first one they list says experience. I thought that was a really funny answer because in almost every job interview I've ever had, when they ask you the question, what's your biggest flaw? I've always said experience. Of course, you get those people that say, oh, I'm a perfectionist, or, oh, I care to a fault. No, that's a dumb answer. If anybody watching this has a job interview coming up and they ask you your biggest weakness, say experience. Because the way I always try to frame it is, I believe I'm very qualified, but of course I'm looking for a job because I don't have one. So there might be a lot of smaller details that I don't understand because I don't have that experience. However, I have the skill once I get into this role to pick up very quickly what I need to learn, if that makes sense. That's always been my best answer. That's why I thought it was funny that they said that was a weakness of his, because that tells me that he doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. Like, we know Cedric Coward only played 6 games at Washington State. Before that at Eastern Washington, he wasn't playing against great level of competition. But yeah, there's been a lot of players that come out of smaller schools. Look at John Morant of Murray State. We've seen what he can become. We talked about Nick Clifford at Colorado State. Maybe he comes into the league and dominates too. Doesn't matter that he was playing against small competition. These kind of things happen. And the next weakness they have listed is his strength. Not like one of his strengths is his weakness. No, I'm talking about physical strength. They have listed as his weakness, which didn't make a lot of sense to me because we just spent 5 minutes talking about how big his frame is and how he likes to finish through contact. But now you're going to say a weakness of his is his strength? Like, he's a kid. He's 21 years old. He's got a nice frame. He will fill into it as he gets older. We're hoping the same thing happens for Khalil Ware. We're seeing it happen for Nikola Jovic right now. I believe that you get guys who are very hard workers, like we've read about Cedric Coward, and then when you get them in your developmental system, all these little things like adding on muscle and building strength, they will be able to do that. So when he does fill out that frame, I would say he could pretty easily play the 2 or the 3 in this league. And it's not like he plays soft as is. He is an aggressive player that likes contact. So I wouldn't say strength is a current weakness of his. Then the last weakness they do have listed is his shot creation, because he doesn't have an incredible handle. They say he picks up his dribble a bit too much. But again, it's like if you're not looking at him to be a superstar, you don't need him to be that shot creator. Although I do think he has that potential because of that mid-range game that we talked about earlier. You don't need a great handle to get to that mid-range game. You just need a great touch and great footwork. And I think Cedric Coward has that. And also, he moves very well without the ball. If you can do that and you have a good mid-range game, I don't need you to be Kyrie Irving with the dribble. But now let's move on to his fit with the Miami Heat. And to me, if you can get that level of a 3-and-D wing at pick number 20, then that's an absolute home run. I think Cedric Coward is versatile enough to pretty much play with anybody on the Heat. He's a great enough defender and off-ball shooter to play next to Tyler Hero. He's really great enough off-ball to play against anybody because he can spot up anywhere around the court and knock down that shot. And like some of the other guys we talked about in Rasheer Fleming and Noah Asenge, both of those guys will be drafted to be like higher upside Haywood Highsmith replacements. And I think you could add Cedric Coward to that list also. Although he's a bit shorter, if you do draft him, I think you would look for him to be your backup wing pretty much immediately, because I do think that he has the highest scoring potential over Rasheer Fleming or Noah Asenge, just because his efficiency is that insane. So all of that being said, Cedric Coward is definitely one of my favorite prospects that I've covered so far. So once again, shout out to everyone that recommended I talk about him. Let me know your thoughts down below. Did I change your opinion on how you felt about him before? Do you think he's worthy of the Heat drafting at 20? And let me know what you think his ceiling is in the NBA. I'm very curious to hear what everybody thinks. Make sure to like and subscribe because I'm on the grind to hit 8,000 subs. And I'll see you on the next video. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.